Okay, so we'll tell the story again about the bike.
Oh, when we were children, I was probably 5, 6 years old, and Jim was, how old would you been? You're 8 years older than me? So, whatever that goes
14.
up to. We had one bike, and so when we would ride the bike, all of us rode the bike at the same times. I used to ride on the handlebars. Jim got to sit in the seat because he had the long legs. He would pedal, and Brother Manuel would be on the crossbar between the handlebars and the seat. And who knows who we had in the back, hanging onto the back bolts off the back tire. But with all that weight, the tires, I'm sure had to have been pretty close to being flat. We overdid it on the weight
Limit.
on the bike.
But you took the bikes from downtown when people left them at the theaters?
No, this was our personal bike.
We used to use it to go up to the ballpark to watch the professional ball team that played up there. I still remember the first baseman's name, Ken Landenberger. He was the first baseman for the White Sox.
Was he?
Yeah.
That's too many letters. I wouldn't have been able to say his name like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, when we used to go to those games, we were known as the Knothole Gang. And what we used to do is, in the back fence on the outfield, there was knots in the planks of the boards that were in the outfield. And we used to knock with rocks, we used to knock the knot holes that were in the woods, because I think it was probably pine.
Yeah, it could be.
So there was a lot of knots, and we would peek through the hole to be able to watch the game, because none of us had enough money to go inside to watch the game.
Even though the price was like 15 cents to get in or something like that, a cheap price.
There was 10 of us out there. That's why we were known as a gang, Knothole Gang.
What was the story about breaking into the Hostess bakery?
Well, down the street from us, in another alley, there was a Hostess.
Delivery guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had a business out of his home, and Hostess cupcakes, all the goodies that he would peddle. Well, he had them in his garage and in his trunk of his car or his truck, whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was. But anyway, when we found out that we could get in there, well, we'd go in and help ourselves and get some snacks. So we would. It wasn't the right thing to do at the time, but
Really?
We took him to the ball game to eat while we were watching the game.
yeah.
It was out of the guy's house?
Yeah, he worked out of his house, and his garage, as you've seen, a lot of the garages were behind those homes that when we seen yesterday down in Colorado Springs. So we had access from the garage through the alley. You'd think he would have had a better security. Well, after his supply got lowered after a few times, I'm sure he realized something was going on.
Put a padlock on the garage or something.
I kind of remember going over there, and there was like a little Hostess building or something up in that area. Maybe I imagine that. It was like Avon. Did he go sell his Hostess stuff at people's houses or something?
No. Well, he would go to stores. I mean, he was a distributor, is what he was.
Okay.
And his supply was in his garage.
Oh.
See, so he'd pack his car up or truck. I don't remember what it was, a panel truck or something. And then he would go to different little stores in the neighborhood and
Drop off his supplies. If whatever they wanted at the time.
So Uncle Manuel said he dropped out of school in like 7th grade?
He had to go to the 8th grade. The law was 8th grade.
Oh. And then what did he do?
Went to work.
Went to work.
Where?
Well, he was washing dishes at the restaurants uptown, and that's how he met his future wife at one of the restaurants. Her whole family worked there as busboys, dishwashers. I don't think any of them were ever waiters or anything, but there was probably maybe a cook in the bunch, but that's where he met his future wife, Eleanor Duran, who is from the Springs.
Oh, she was? She was a Duran?
Yep.
Yes. And she was from a clan of about 12 kids. On that side of the creek, every family was just out of control with siblings. On our side of the tracks, we were 4 to 10 kids was somewhere the range of how many were in a family.
Were those, was that where the Mexican families lived?
Yep.
Yep. Hillside, Colorado. It's a little suburb of Colorado Springs.
But I thought you guys were Hillside.
Yes,
We were.
That's what we're referring to. That's
So
it.
where's the other side of the track?
That was on the Knothole side. That was on the west side of Colorado Springs. On the other side
Remember where
of
the
river.
where the big towers were? Those great big chimney-like. That's where
the Durans
Durangs
lived.
used to live, in that area, and we were on the other side of town.
We were clear west.
And when we say the other side of town, we're not talking about, we're talking about maybe 4 or 5 blocks.
Well,
But I thought your mom didn't want you to associate with the Mexicans.
well, she didn't, because they always had head lice and stuff like that. So she didn't want us to. That you could always tell the Mexican kids, because their heads were all shaved, because they always had what we used to call piojos. Head lice is in English is head lice, but in Spanish they were called piojos. And it was sometimes, like I say, with those big Mexican families, one kid would get it, and they were all sleeping in the same bed, so the kids just, whatever one had, the other one's got, and they all wore big, they were like beanies over their bald heads, because
Yeah.
they would shave their heads to get rid of the lice. They didn't have the medications like we have today to deal with head lice and stuff like that, but there was little pandemics of head lice, measles, and stuff like that would go through those families.
So Uncle Manuel didn't go to school, he was working, but did he live at home?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Going back to that head lice thing, Mother used to tell us when we would go to the movie theater not to put our heads back on the seat, because you never knew who was there before you, and that head lice could have gotten off from that person onto the back of the seat, and then you sit there and you put your head back like that. So we all sat erect watching the movies like that. But that's what Mother would tell us to do, and
That's smart.
we obeyed her, because if we came home with head lice, oh man,
Trouble.
all hell would break loose.
Did she have any kind of like home remedies or
Mercurochrome was our home. Do you know what mercurochrome is? Well, back in the days, there was this orange, bright red orange methylate. Is what it was called. But it would be in a little bottle, and it had a little dauber, and you'd stick that dauber in there, and it looked like a the back end or a butt end of a thermometer. Remember, it was round glass, and what you would do is you'd dip it into the container where the liquid was, and wherever you cut, scratch, and you'd put that over that. You'd clean it first, and then you'd put that methylate on there, and it was bright red orange, and you could see that 3 blocks away. So, but it was something like what are the stuff they have today, that the ointments that they have, the 3-in-1 ointments they have today. Well, that's that was the only thing that we used back then.
Mercurochrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everything. Boy, if Mom seen blood, that's what she would do. Clean it out and put that mercurochrome on it, and it would burn.
Probably had alcohol in it too.
Well,
I'm guessing.
whatever. We don't know. I don't think they can put ingredients on those.
No,
things back then.
not in those days. I don't think.
And then she used to buy. There was called a Watkins salesman. He was a guy that would go door to door peddling.
Watkins products of all kinds.
Yeah, it could be salves. It could be. He was like, sometimes they would, those guys, those gypsies would go around from town to town selling these potions that says it would cure all. If you put this on that, it would cure this and cure that. But he was kind of like that, but he was legal.
He was like the guy from the Wizard of Oz. Remember the guy in Wizard of Oz?
Still have Watkins.
Yeah. And they used to have a salve that she used to buy a lot, and we would use that later on, and for wounds, cuts,
Scratches.
fights, bruises, bloody noses, whatever. We stuck up for each other, especially with having bigger brothers. If I got in a fight, well, they'd come to defend me. But they'd tell me, says, don't be starting these fights like this because we're not always going to be around, So I decided I was not going to be a fighter. I was going to be a lover.
That worked out.
Yeah, it worked out good.
Okay.
Lived up to my name, Romeo.
Well, did she have any teas or herbs or anything like that she'd use?
What she used to use wild herbs. It was called yerba buena, and it was a mint, a green.
I think it was like a yeah.
It was she would use it if we had an upset stomach or belly ache or something like that, or we ate something we shouldn't have eaten or whatever, and she would brew this in a tea, and there were just leaves. That she had plants outside the house, and she would pick those leaves, bring them in, put them in some kind of a cup or something, and heat it, and then give us to drink it, and it would settle our stomach. It was like being in the Amazon. Whatever would cure you, that's the way we did. Because we didn't have money to go to a doctor. I don't think the first time I went to a doctor was. I had to maybe that first time I went to have that dentist, that tooth pulled.
Oh, when you acquired the name of Spike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to the doctor?
Yeah, I think probably when I got poison ivy.
Well, you're probably somewhere where you shouldn't have been.
We lived in on Sierra Madre. Over by the ironworks where Dad worked.
Oh, okay, you were on the other side of town.
Yeah, on the other side of town. Uh-oh.
Well, when you went to fat camp.
I went to fat camp.
I didn't go.
We called it nutrition camp. We didn't call it fat camp.
That was probably run by doctors, huh?
Probably. Or nurses, I don't know, health professionals. But I lasted 1 week, and then I snuck out one day during nap time and walked clear back down to the Shooks Run properties down in that neck of the woods and waited till either Mom came home or I don't know what happened, but they had been reported me missing.
Yeah.
And so they were wondering where in the heck would he have gone. So they said, well, let's start with his house. And sure enough, I was hiding in the closet.
So those herbs that she had, did she grow? I guess she grew those.
Well, they really actually grew wild, but we knew what to, we didn't, other than that, the yerba buena, there was like the peppermint, was the only thing that I can remember.
Yeah, those are all those New Mexico folk medicine. That
Yep.
People still use it. I'm on a Facebook group where people say, you know, I have this kind of a rash. What should I use? And then people will say, oh, you should get this herb and make it into this paste or whatever, and the teas and all that kind
Well,
of
we
stuff.
didn't have anything like calamine lotion or anything like that. That as the years went on, you know, for stuff like that, we just, if we did get a rash, we just toughed it out, and when we took baths and, you know, and kept it clean and whatnot, and it might have cleared up after a few days. So